This is The Guide Gals, a modern, wedding-focused podcast by the experts at Here Comes the Guide. I'm Chelsea, a designer and inspired creative who's probably racked up over 10,000 hours on Pinterest, and the friend who's going to shoot it to you straight.
And I'm Caroline, a social media manager who's obsessed with dogs as ring bearers and will inevitably cry over your wedding video. We've seen it from all sides. We've been brides, planners, bridesmaids, and have worked with standout brands throughout the industry.
Think of us as an extension of your wedding party and hang out with us as we share the ins, outs, ups, and downs of the road to I Do. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about ways where you can make your wedding more eco-conscious without sacrificing your vision for your big day.
Yeah, there are a lot of different decisions that you can make to make things a little bit more sustainable during your wedding planning process. And I think a lot of these options also make you feel better at the end of your wedding day, knowing that you've made a positive impact in some way.
Yeah, and so whether you call it like a green wedding, sustainable, eco-conscious, or like whatever your specific goals are, maybe something like means a lot to you and you want to figure out how to incorporate that, but other things like maybe aren't as personally important to you. We're going to talk about all of those different things, how you can do things in a responsible manner, all of that good stuff in this episode.
Yeah, and I think this is a great thing for us to be talking about and a great thing for you to be listening to as you're on your wedding planning journey, because weddings are large events that can often be very wasteful. There's a lot of ways where things go to waste or money goes to waste or time goes to waste, but like thinking about these things ahead of time, I think will make everyone feel better at the end of the process, and you'll be able to benefit potentially a lot of people.
And hopefully this doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, like another thing I have to do and think about. Hopefully it like feels like, oh, like wait, there are ways where I can make like less of a footprint, whatever that, what kind of footprint? like your like life footprint or whatever that's called. Like I can like, you know, hopefully this feels like something. Yeah. Okay, sure, that thing. Hopefully this feels like just like a positive thing, a way that you can maybe make a difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, if these things like don't mean a ton to you, you're probably not listening to this episode anyway. And yeah. You don't have to like make extra work for yourself or anything like that. But we want to like call these things out because there's lots of ways where if this means something to you, you can make it part of your day.
Yes. Yep. A little bit of thoughtfulness beforehand can go a long way. But before we jump into all of those ways that you can be thoughtful about your wedding day, we have to take some time to think about our beverages of the day, because that's important to me.
It's important to me as well. What are you drinking today, Caroline?
Today I haven't even cracked it open yet. I have an Olipop, a ginger ale Olipop. I love this one. To me is like, it is one of my favorites. I like this better than traditional ginger ale, but it is very ginger forward. So my husband doesn't like this one as much. He is not as big on the ginger, but I love it. It's one of my recent favorites. We also have some of the crisp apple in our fridge as well. Yeah,
I think I tried that one with you before. Like I think I tried it at your house. I think that's the only time I've had it.
Yes.
But yeah, so good.
Oh, I love it. It's my fave. What do you have?
I have a latte. It's an iced latte.
Delicious.
Yep. That's what I've got.
Love. Just plain or flavored at all?
Oh, I guess I could talk more about it. Yeah, it's I just put in there like I've talked about this before on the podcast. It is like the Silk brand oat milk creamer. It's like the oatmeal cookie flavor. It's really good. If you like sweet coffee, which I go like in and out with like wanting it like really sweet and like not. This is going to be more towards like the really sweet situation. Now I'm talking about it. I've also mixed it like half and half. Like I'll do like a splash of this kind of, and then the other like milk situation that goes in here would just be like plain oat milk. So you can like dull it down too. Yeah. If you want my coffee making advice. Okay, so the first thing that you can think about is going to be choosing a venue that is sustainable. So you have the option to choose a wedding venue that is managed by a nonprofit organization and happens to protect the land or the sea. So a lot of these things exist for sure. In Florida, Tampa Bay Watch is doing a lot of work to restore wildlife habits. They have education programs, cleanup efforts, and at this one, your rental fee goes directly to helping benefit that. So a lot of places do this. That's like one example that I have. I don't have a ton of examples like a huge list for you at this time, but I do know that a plug, once again, Here Comes the Guide, the company that we work for, is really great. There's tons of wedding venues on the site, and we actually have a nonprofit coding system. I don't know exactly what you call
Yeah.
that, but one of the site types, you can like narrow your search, and nonprofit is one of them. So any venues on Here Comes the Guide that are going to be a nonprofit, we can't exactly promise what kind of nonprofit they all are because there's a whole bunch of different ones with different missions and all of that.
Yeah.
But that is one way to search for them. And just because
Mm-hmm.
something's a nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean that they do exactly that, like that they have education programs and they're benefiting the land or anything like that. But if you do your research, a lot of places do, and maybe they don't use like the full amount to give back. Maybe they don't even like use any of your venue rental like cost to
Mm-hmm.
like donate to the cause. But just knowing that you're supporting an organization in some way that takes those like sustainable, eco-conscious
Yeah.
measures can feel really good. So,
Oh yeah. And there are places even outside of like, I mean, these are also nonprofits, but places like museums, historical societies, art galleries, there are places like these that can also be considered nonprofits that are contributing back to the community aspect or providing further education programs. So maybe it's not directly tied to something that is going to provide for the physical environment, but it could also provide back to your cultural community or other efforts that you want to support. So those museums, those art galleries and things are also beautiful places to host a wedding. So it's a great venue option. But even more so than just nonprofits, there are venues that are specifically surrounding more green efforts. So places that want to give more of an ecological impact or really reduce their carbon footprint. There's a lot of venues that really do try and make a huge effort on this. And they can provide a really modern, chic venue type. There's one I'm thinking of is Greenhouse Loft in Chicago. They do a really great job of making these environmentally friendly decisions and really trying to host their weddings in that way. And you can tell that they've thought through a lot of those decisions, but you can also leave your wedding day knowing that you have made an impact and knowing that your venue is doing a lot of that like groundwork for you, that you don't have to think about all of those things because your venue has that already. So some of the examples for Greenhouse Loft, they include a state-of-the-art indoor air quality system. They on-site compost and recycle to make sure that your socially responsible cleanup is a breeze. So like I said, they're taking care of a lot of that for you. They've answered those questions. And so you can rest easy knowing if you book with a venue like them that a lot of those things are going to be taken care of.
yeah, that's really great. Like I just think it feels good to know that like if you're booking at a venue, maybe it's not even something that matters like a ton to you, but like just knowing that they take extra measures, it can just like make you feel good about where your money is going. So that's really
Mm-hmm.
great. Another association that promotes water and energy conservation in the hospitality industry is going to be greenhotels.com. So we're not affiliated with them in any way, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just something to look into. They certify bed and breakfasts. One that we can call out is Historic Sandrock Farm. Yeah, and these are just going to be places that make choices or prioritize these efforts. And yeah, it can make you feel really good. But some questions, if these things matter to you a lot, like there's some questions that you can ask a potential venue. So I'm going to roll through those really quickly. The first one, how does the venue manage waste? So do they do compost? Do they recycle? Do they have any like reduction of waste initiatives? So yeah, like Caroline said at the very top of this episode, these are big events and like a lot of waste can come out of it. So like even like if it's something like you have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of guests involved, like if I don't know, like throwaway items. I always think about this so much, like this isn't a wedding thing, but have you like been to like concert venues and stuff and you just like see like all the cups, like the amount of cups, like
Oh, yeah.
plastic cups, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, they can't provide glass for like sanitary reasons and safety reasons and stuff like that. Like they can't. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't, but there's just like so many cups, Like you can't refill either, like for
Mm-hmm.
sanitary whatever. It's something to think about. It's really cool
Mm-hmm.
when venues like go the extra mile to think about those things. Another question, does the venue source food and beverages locally or regionally? That's really great for lots of reasons. It can cut down on gas emissions or whatever, right? Like if you're having stuff
Mm-hmm.
like shipped in from like really far away, that hurts the environment a lot more than if you're getting like I don't know, some cute ingredients from the farm down the street. That sounds like so
Right.
like romantic and like quaint and like I'm not totally sure that that is always an option, but it's a question that you can ask. Another question, are there options for organic or sustainably produced food and drinks? So if that's something that means a lot to you, a question to ask for sure. I know a lot of venues that are have catering as more of a focus for themselves really are proud to say that like they use like really fresh and organic products. So if that matters to you, definitely ask about that. Another question, does the venue provide reusable or recyclable linens, tableware, glassware? Just like I mentioned, like I can just picture like garbage cans full of cups. Okay. So like I don't know, like I don't know. Like I think about like that bars too, like certain bars you go to like after like 7 p.m. or something. It's like they don't even give people like glass, like beer cups anymore. They use plastic ones, which they probably know what they're doing there. They probably had a lot of broken glasses, but just stuff to think about. And then one
Yeah.
last question that you can ask is, can you provide examples of past sustainable weddings that you've held at your venue? So yeah. And if it's the right venue for
Like that.
you, then they'll be able to answer those questions in a way that is nice. Like, yeah. So, like, once
Yeah.
again, if this is something that means a lot to you, you're going to want to prioritize this in your search and you're definitely going to want to ask those questions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there's also a lot of ways that you can make your decor and your florals more eco-friendly. So you've heard us actually talk about some of these things before. One being florals can be expensive. And if you decide to think more seasonal or local for these florals, if you are doing fresh flowers, that can help, one, reduce the cost, but also be more eco-conscious. So working with your florist to find, places to source it is really helpful, but also because depending on where you source your flowers, they can come from all over the world, which is cool, but also there are a lot of places that use a lot of pesticides to make sure that their flowers are staying beautiful and fresh and things like that. And it's good in that respect, but it also can harm the earth, really. So if you are wanting to be a little bit more conscious of that, I would definitely do your research and work with a florist who knows a lot about those things. Another option for centerpieces or decor in general is potted plants. And again, we've talked about this before. We love this vibe because you can use it as a favor for people to take home, or you could bring it back to your house and then have a lush house filled with plants that were at your wedding. I don't know. I think that's another fun thing that you can nourish and grow those plants as you're nourishing and growing your marriage. Cool. There's a lovely metaphor there. But they can be sometimes more cost effective, and it's just nicer to know that you'll be able to provide a longer lifespan to these plants. And so, whatever you choose, whether that's fresh flowers or potted plants, we do want to make the note like fake flowers aren't necessarily they are a little bit eco friendly in one sense, in another sense, not as much, because once you throw them away, it can become wasteful. So, if you do have fake flowers, I would really, I guess, caution you to think about what are you going to do with those afterwards. And with fresh florals too, what are you going to do with those afterwards? A lot of times you can tell your guests to take them home with you, but not all of them are going to find a place. So there are always more options to donating those flowers. And I think that's a great thing to do, like to stretch your decor past your wedding day into something that's going to brighten someone else's life, or just can be used in another capacity to make them stretch a little bit further instead of becoming wasteful. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen on social media like people donating their flowers to like nursing homes or cancer centers, and they're just like those really like heartwarming videos. Like I don't know who's posting them, but like they're being posted and they're very heartwarming. So that will make you
Yes.
feel really good just to know that like all of those flowers that you spent a considerable amount of money on, they're really beautiful, that they'll
Yeah.
be loved like for the next day and a week or so, like beyond. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
You can even like, aside from like donating them to places like that, which Here Comes the Guy does have an awesome list of charities that will come to your venue and collect these flowers and donate them to these places. So we'll make sure to have that linked in the show notes for you if that's something that you're into. But we do keep talking about those potted plants, and it's because of that one celebrity wedding, and I can't remember whose it was, but it took place in Oklahoma,
I
right?
think Sophia Bush.
It was awesome. Go listen to our celebrity weddings
Yeah.
episode. Actually, go watch it on YouTube. Here Comes the Guide YouTube channel.
Yes.
Because you'll see what we're talking about those potted plants. And it is so cool. In the end, like, I'm not totally sure if would be more expensive or cheaper to do those potted plants. Like, I really don't know cost wise, but they would make a really cool wedding favor if you have like enough of them. You'd have to have like a lot probably. But they can go to like certain people, like, I don't know, or like you could take them home and use them in your own home afterwards, and that extends the life of them. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of options that you have when it comes to donating things, or like even your flowers. I just said you could use those potted plants as wedding favors. You could even say I guess you maybe have to like figure out the logistics of this, but you could say like, hey, like I want to talk to you like your venue coordinator or whatever, but say I want my guests to be able to take home flowers if they want to. Like maybe they could help you like take apart like an arch or something. Like you don't want your like guests to like go crazy ripping stuff apart, but there's ways to do it. Like
Right.
you could even let your guests take flowers. So I would love that as a wedding guest. Like, oh my gosh, I can take home flowers. I'd have like a really
Yes.
pretty bouquet the next day on my table. Love.
Love it. And also, all of these wedding donations, we'll talk about more in the future, or we'll talk about more later in this episode, are tax deductible. So that's another win, I feel like, there. So if you do make any of these into a donation, I feel like that's a great thing to do too. And you can talk to the charities that you're working with about what that looks like as well.
Yeah, they'll know far more about that kind of stuff than we will, but just like a little note from us that's the truth. Okay, the next kind of category that we're going to dive into is sustainable food and beverages. So we've said this a lot of times, like once again, the cups, like if that's something that's really important to you, ask the question about like, maybe you're asking your venue, maybe you're asking your caterer, but make sure that you understand what's going on with the waste from the food stuff. So if they're using like disposable items, like they're going to be using some disposable items somewhere. Is it stuff that they take measures to recycle? Are they using materials that can even be recycled? So yeah, that's a question to ask to know where stuff is going. There are going to be certain catering companies or certain venues that prioritize this. So if it's something that they do, they're likely like really proud that they do it because it's probably an extra expense for them. They have to go like a little bit like the extra mile. So they probably will be showing that off a little bit. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of times there's going to be leftover food of some kind at your wedding. And a lot of venues or caterers have now a practice where they will donate this extra food. So I think a lot of them too will give you the option, like if you want to take the food home and like put it in your fridge and eat it. Like I think that's usually an option. That's great. A lot of your caterers will get that stuff packed up for you and hand it off to whoever's in charge of like making that food go somewhere. A fridge preferably. But some of these catering companies or venues are taking this step to say like, hey, if you don't want that extra food, like maybe there's a ton of it, like maybe you're going on a honeymoon, like right away you like you can't eat it. There are some places that are taking the measures to actually donate this food to people in need, like people who are hungry and need the food. So
yeah, these can be places like teenage drop-in centers, youth shelters, alcoholic treatment centers, AIDS hospice, senior centers, refugee centers, and even animal rescue centers throughout the U.S. So there's a lot of places where this food can go instead of ending up in a trash can, in a landfill, and like there are a lot of ways that this can be stretched further. And you've already paid for that food. You may as well use it for a good thing. And especially I think like if you're doing a destination wedding where like nobody is able to really take this food with them, or if a lot of people are traveling, whatever it may be, there's a lot of ways that you can make this into something for good. So one thing to note though is that there are regulations for what kinds of food, how they're packaged, things like that. So you'll definitely want to make a plan around that. Just talk to your caterer or call one of those like local centers that you are going to be working with to nail down what that's going to look like so you can be prepped to do that. And then also you will want to think about like who is doing that. Is the caterer making that drop off? Is this like there is potential that that center will come and pick it up from you. But there are some logistics around this. So it's a good thing to think about and listen to this episode before you plan your wedding so that you can make these decisions ahead of time.
Yeah, a plan absolutely needs to be in place for most things, but yeah, this too. For sure. Like there's lots of logistics there. I love the idea that like there are measures being taken so the food just doesn't end up getting thrown away. Like wasted, like food waste, it like kind of hurts my soul, and I don't know why.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess I do know why. Like it's sad. Like the food, like it's one, like it's a waste of your money in a way. Like, you know, like you paid for it, but like even like when I make food at home and I like don't end up eating the leftovers in the fridge, I'm like, oh, that's so sad. Like I made that food. I didn't even eat it. What's wrong with me? Yeah. So I love that. I love the possibility of food getting donated places. So Here Comes the Guide has a list of some national resources that can help you find places that maybe do this. So I'm going to run through that list. One is called Feeding America. So that'll help you find your local food bank. Rescuing Leftover Cuisine is another one that will help you donate food. Homeless Shelter Directory, that can help you to find homeless shelters, which a lot of times would be probably very grateful to receive donations. Women's shelters, and then ASPCA, that can help you to find animal shelters. So I'm not exactly sure how like the wedding food donation would impact the animal shelters, because I don't think we're like giving the animals like leftover chicken wings or something. But I would assume that that would probably go to like the workers, like feeding.
I'm
like
assuming,
yeah, which is great too. I love that. But I love too that like this list that I ran through, provided by Here Comes the Guide, it kind of like touches on all of these different areas. So if there's like a cause or like of some kind here that like, you know, tugs at your heartstrings that you like really feel strongly about, that'll let you know like where you prefer to donate your food, what will make you like feel warm and fuzzy. That's great.
Okay, another area to think of, which maybe you haven't yet, is the attire, the fashion, the attire every day, how to make that more ethical. Now, of course, you don't want to sacrifice the look that you want for it. And I think you can still accomplish that in so many ways. But things to think about are kind of like, okay, what is my dress made of? That's actually something that is a big, I feel like, topic of conversation just in general in the world, like how to avoid fast fashion, what type of materials are actually sustainable, good for you and good for the environment. A lot of designer dresses are going to use the proper materials, but if that's something that's important to you, look into it a little bit further, especially if you're exploring other options other than like designer gowns. But you can also ask whoever you're working with at a bridal salon or wherever you're shopping for your wedding dress about the materials, if you're looking for something in particular, if you want organic cotton, whatever that may be. And honestly, that also kind of leads into like vintage gowns being a little bit more sustainable because of the fabrics that were being used at that point. But I do think this is an interesting area or topic to think about because we don't always think about how can we make this aspect of the wedding more ethical, sustainable, whatever it may be. And there are a lot of great options.
There are a lot of great options. I know you just said like vintage gowns. So like if you're tapping into anything used, that's a great place. Like, of course, like you're reusing something or recycling something. Like you're that's very green of you to do, very sustainable. So there are lots of rental options. That's the first thing I want to mention. So lots of like bridal specific rental companies and otherwise too. Like Caroline and I both have said like we love Nuuly. Love Nuuly. So they're definitely not like bridal specific, but I don't know. They're probably, I don't know. They have good stuff. Like they really do. But there's so many rental companies out there that you can explore. And I know that there are some like wedding specific ones too. And then, you could even consider getting a vintage gown, whether it's like something that is like a family piece or not. It doesn't have to be. And you can wear it as is. That's great. Or you can like alter it and make it your own. Really a green thing to do. Am I using green correctly? Yeah. I think so, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like a sustainable thing to do. Another area too, like this falls into attire, of course, is like your jewelry. So if that like vintage kind of thing or like used stuff, if that like intrigues you, it can be really cool. Vintage jewelry and accessories are like a really cool place to explore as well. And this can like make you feel really good. It can end up like saving you a little bit of money sometimes. not always,
Oh
I
yeah.
think. But yeah, it's like ways to get creative with stuff that just like might make you feel really good about what you're doing.
Oh, for sure. There's, especially when it comes to the jewelry industry of kind of things, like if you decide to go with moissanite instead of a diamond because you don't want to put yourself in a position of you're like, oh, where was this diamond sourced? Was it sourced ethically?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that kind of goes into the diamond industry, which is crazy.
Hmm.
And so finding ways to make better decisions there. And also, if you have something that's been passed down, like what a great, I don't know, like connection that you have to that piece then. But don't be afraid to not have a diamond, not have moissanite. You could have an emerald, you could have sapphire, you could have whatever you
Yes.
want. And I do think that is a good thing to touch on when it comes to like eco-friendly, sustainable, green trends in the jewelry industry. Also, another thing that you may not have thought about is the fact that your wedding gown can be recycled. There are a lot of ways to do this. If you decide you don't want to hold on to your wedding dress, of course you can sell it again and then someone else can get use out of your dress. Or you can also donate it to a lot of charities. So there are wonderful places that are going to take your dress and use it for another purpose or just give it to somebody who might need it. Sometimes what they'll actually do with these dresses too, if you donate it to a charity, is they will resell it for a good cause. So if you find a charity that you would really love to work with and would love to put your dress to good use in that way, that's a great thing to find. And if you decide to keep it for yourself, finding an environmentally friendly dry cleaner is also a great thing to do. I don't actually know a lot of the details about what that entails, but just a good thing to look into. So here are some of the nationwide organizations that can put your dress to good use if you decide to donate it afterwards. These are all sourced by Here Comes the Guide, obviously because Here Comes the Guide is awesome, and I'm biased. So Adorned in Grace, this resells donated gowns and accessories with all the proceeds used towards preventing sex trafficking and helping sex trafficking victims. There's Brides Across America, which provides gowns for military and first responder brides that are burdened by financial hardships like deployments. Brides Against Breast Cancer, the donated dresses are made affordable for others while helping fund breast cancer causes. Then there's Brides for a Cause, and that sells donated dresses to raise funds for various women-focused charities. And then Forever Angels of Virginia turns donated wedding dresses into free infant gowns for babies who have passed away in the NICU. So there are a lot of different organizations or causes that you can support through these donations, and I love thinking about how your wedding dress can get another life and can support someone in need.
And there's such a wide range there, once again, with like different causes. So if one of those, yeah, like really speaks to you, I just think that that's great. Like there's so many different ways that or places you can send your dress, which is so special. But it can like go to this other special thing. It's great. The next category that we're going to chat about is going to be a sustainable invitations and stationery. So of course, these things traditionally use a lot of paper. So yeah, it's just using a lot of materials. So nowadays there's a wide variety of like more sustainable options when it comes to invitations and like paper products in general. So there's usually like depending on where you're ordering from, there's usually some type of like recycled or like tree-free paper, including handmade stuff. There's like colorful artistic materials. So it can give you like a really unique look for your invitations, and you can like opt for something a little bit more sustainable. So it's just like questions to ask whoever's doing your invitations, or if you're ordering them from like an online company, just like look at their policies. You could always send them an email if you really want to know like what's going on there. But yeah, there's like different types of inks that you can use as well that are more sustainable. I'm not an expert in that area, but it's a thing. Okay, ask your stationery person, your professional calligrapher, or whoever, whatever they are, whoever this person is.
I forget
You
what
can
it's called.
yeah, that's pretty bad. But you know what we're talking about. So by using also like postcards and just getting rid of that envelope, that's an option too. So that's going to cut down on a lot of paper if you want to do that. There's also a place called Paper Culture. They do wedding invitations. They're a certified green business. So every piece of paper is printed on 100% post-consumer recycled paper, and every order plants a tree. So that's a pretty good combo, I think.
Yeah, you can also go entirely digital with your stationery, your invites, anything like that. And there's a company called Greenvelope. We don't have affiliations with any of these companies. We just are shouting them out because we think they're doing a good job of keeping green initiatives and sustainable practices at the forefront of their business. And so you can still get great electronic, beautiful, elegant invites sent out. And honestly, there's a lot to be said for digital invites that they're a little easier. There's also a lot of applications that you can use within those digital envelopes or like invites that can make it easier for you, that you can track the RSVPs a little bit better or send out reminders. So there's a lot of great things that go along with digital invites, but also for companies like Greenvelope, and they're not the only place that does things like this, but Greenvelope partners with the National Forest Foundation, Mountains to Sound, the National Park Foundation, and 1% for the Planet. And so through all of these partnerships, they can do more than just save paper. They can make a greener future. So they do a lot of wonderful things, partnering to help save trees, time, money, and a portion of their sales will go towards some of these organizations. And I think that's great. So
yeah, that's really great. One thing I want to add about if you're going to go all digital, that's a great thing to do. And it certainly will make things easier on your end with like collecting all of those responses. Like I know for me, that sounds so much easier than like the mail system. Okay. Like waiting for like, I don't know, RSVPs to come back in the mail. Like, oh my God, did something get lost in the mail? Someone didn't even send it in. Like now we have to wait for, it gets complicated. But if you're going to go all digital, communication is going to be key. Okay. So like your like young wedding guests that you're inviting are going to probably be like, cool, I get it. RSVP done, like done. I know I can understand I need to go to the wedding website. I see the address on there, all of that. Grandma and grandpa, are they going to know what's going on? Maybe not. And that's okay. Like just like make sure that you clue them in on what's going on. Or like if you have like, I don't know, like an aunt and uncle that like live far away, like maybe be like, hey cousins, like their kids or something, like make sure that they know what's going on. So can you help them with that? Like you might, that's just something that you might want to anticipate. Like, and you might get questions from like your older guests just being like, were you going to send me an invitation? I didn't get an invitation in the mail. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just have to like anticipate that stuff and like take it with like a grain of salt, like let it just roll right over, because like yeah, we think that it's great to break tradition, to do things your own way, to save money where you can, to be eco-conscious where you can. That's great. Doing things that mean a lot to you when it comes to your wedding day is amazing. Anytime you break tradition though, you're probably going to have wedding guests like, I don't know, like your grandma and grandpa that are like, why would you do that?
What is this?
So just know that might come along with something like that. All right, the next thing I'm going to chat about is just going beyond the wedding day. So I'm going to talk a little bit about honeymoons and how, like, even during your honeymoon, there are, like, eco-conscious choices that you can make, or, like, companies that can, like, assist you in doing that. So if that's something that's important to you, you can, like, opt for having, like, a little bit of an out-of-the-box wedding or honeymoon experience. Like, there's lots of alternative things that you can do. There are things called eco tours that we've heard of people doing for their honeymoon. It's pretty cool. And it's defined as responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment and improves the well-being of the local people. So that's awesome. So I know like a lot of times when you travel to other countries and like there's like a lot of smaller countries that are so beautiful, but like you're staying at like a big resort and like I'm not entirely sure on like what the impact locally is, and I'm sure that it varies like across the board. I know a lot of countries like the tourism is like one of their biggest like income sources like for the country. So I think that can be a good thing and a bad thing, but it's something to look into if it's something that you really care about. So yeah. So for an example, like if you want to do Hawaii, I know that's a popular destination for honeymoons. I've never been there. It sounds amazing. There's something called the Sierra Club, and they offer eco outings, like a cooking experience it sounds like they have, which leads you through authentic culinary adventures, which is really cool. And there's like a rainforest tour, lots of stuff like that I think like even like aside from it being like eco conscious or green or whatever, I think it's really great to like if you're going to a different country or like even Hawaii, like if you kind of immerse yourself and like maybe like go outside of the resort and like I don't know, spend money in like places like that are like more local or like smaller businesses or whatever it might be, like support them, and like you're vacationing in their home and like you can like learn more about them. I think that I don't know how green it is. Once again, like I don't know if that really falls into the category, but I think it can make you feel really good and just like know that you're not just I don't know, like being flippant about like where you're traveling, like learning like a little bit more
Yeah.
about the culture, that kind of stuff, I think is really cool.
Yep. And what I want to end on is kind of like bringing us back to, why does any of this matter? Why does it make a difference in what we do with our food waste, our decor stuff, our choices in attire? The wedding industry is huge. And on average, it can be a $70 billion a year business, like in the US alone. And that, doesn't account for other countries. So there's a lot of money that gets thrown around within the US for weddings. And on your day, you get to make the choice of like, is that money going to be used for things that are going to benefit the environment or local communities? And I think we will all feel great to say like, yeah, we did that. And the more choices we can make towards these things, I think the more other people are going to see them and potentially make other choices. You have no idea how many weddings we'll go to are like, oh my gosh, like I saw this at another wedding, or and you should totally try this or do this. Like the word of mouth that happens through weddings. So if you choose to make these decisions, you have no idea how many other people might be impacted by that. So if you choose to do any of these things, make sure you tell your friends, make sure you tell whoever else is wedding planning to listen to this episode. But also, like, if you make the choice to donate to a charity, let other people know that that charity is available for them to donate to as well. I think using this as a grander effort amongst the wedding industry, I think would be a huge impact to so many people. All of these people who might benefit from a bedside floral arrangement at a hospital, or a meal through like a women's shelter, or any other sort of donations like that. So you really do make a big difference in this industry that is always hustling and bustling and having a lot going on. And I really think that this effort to make things a little bit more sustainable, green, eco-conscious, these decisions don't have to be groundbreaking or hard, but it does require some thoughtfulness in your planning process. So we want to encourage all of you to think about those things.
Yeah. And I think that this list, like, by no means is it meant to overwhelm you. I could see myself like listening to this episode and being like, okay, there's a lot that goes into wedding planning. I didn't even know that I had to think about this stuff. But alternatively, like, we hope that it makes you feel like you can make a difference in like ways that, I don't know, like, yeah, it might take like a little bit of extra time or planning or whatever, but it can make you feel really good about, at the end of the day, about what you're doing, about the money that you're spending. And yeah, you can just be like a little bit more intentional with how you're doing things. I know that like, yeah, weddings are so expensive. And if like you can feel a little bit extra good about like the huge checks that you're like handing out like all around, like I think that that's great. So yeah, like in conclusion, I mean, I second what Caroline said. Like, even if you choose one of these things to incorporate in your big day, you should feel really good about that and know that you are making a difference. And like all of the little things add up to big things and they matter. So I feel like that's like, I feel like one of those like cutaways like on Disney Channel, like from like back in the day when they used to be like, recycling is cool. Like, you know what I mean? And it was like Hillary Duff, like saying something. That's kind of how I felt in that moment. But I'm trying not to be cheesy. We really think that this stuff is awesome. So I hope that like these resources are helpful to you, and we'll have some stuff listed out in the show notes for you so that you can, you know, kind of go back to those things and do some searching on your own for what really matters a lot to you. But yeah, that's all that we have for you today in terms of this. If you have any questions, wedding related, eco wedding related, green wedding related, sustainable, I don't know, anything at all, let us know. You can reach out to us on our website, theguygalspodcast.com. Or if you've done any of these things, had a great experience, or if you have any additional ideas of things that you did that were just like, I don't know, you could add to our list, let us know. We'd love to share that and hear about it. Also on our website, you can find our full episode library as well as lots of free resources that we have for you. You can find us on Instagram at The Guy Gals Podcast. We post lots of behind the scenes stuff over there. We're on TikTok at The Guy Gals Pod, and you can watch our episodes on YouTube on the Here Comes the Guide YouTube channel.
Lots of places where you can reach out, get connected with us, and we really encourage you to do so because our purpose as The Guy Gals Podcast is to walk alongside you in wedding planning. So let us help you. I don't know what I'm trying to say with that. Help us help you. Whatever.
They get it.
That's all for this episode today. So until next time, cheers.